Good evening and welcome to Globespan 24x7, our Monday night program originating here from New York. We want to welcome all of our viewers, and to be on tonight we have one of the highest ranking member of our government. He has so graced us with occasion today to be with us, and we will have one hour, maybe a little more than that, of frank discussion tonight. So, Mr. Prime Minister, we want to welcome you to our program for the first time, and we hope that you'll have a splendid evening with us.
Thank you, Mr. Sugrim, Charles, and thank you, Dr. Rose. And to our viewers, I'm honored to be on this program this evening, and I'm looking forward to frank discussion on issues pertaining to Guyana and where we go from here.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. And Dr. Rose, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. You have had a long absence. I know you have been working with the Prime Minister and us to get the Prime Minister on today. So we want to thank you also for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome to you, Mr. Prime Minister, Brigadier Mark Phillips, and all of Globespan listeners far and wide. Thanks to Noir Singh for giving us this opportunity as well, and to also our technical expertise, Devin. So let's get a show on the road, Charles.
Thank you for doing that to us, for doing that for me, Dr. Rose. Ladies and gentlemen, today marked a very special, important day in the history of Guyana. Today, October the 5th, 1992, we had the restoration of democracy after more than 24 years of rigged elections. The last free and fair election was held in 1964, and in 1992, we started that process again. From 1968, Guyanese bear the brunt of rigged elections, which was supported by the Johnson administration here in the US. President Burnham had no fear of reprisal from the US, so the rigging started with overseas votes. After this was condemned by many, the PNC strategy moved to a single counting place of ballots. This continued until 1985. Guyanese at home must understand and remember that President Hoyt did not suddenly receive a change of heart and allow for free and fair elections. Numerous teams from the diaspora lobbied the US government and others for the restoration of democracy. With the arrival of President Carter in 1990, the stage was set for counting of ballots at each polling station, and so we began this process of free and fair election. Mr. Prime Minister, we want to wish you a happy birthday, today being your birthday on October the 5th. So my question to you, Prime Minister, today, October the 5th, 2020, you are the Prime Minister. Where were you on October 5th, 1992?
That's a great question, and I am delighted to answer that question. October the 5th, 1992 brings back a lot of memories to me. I was a young officer in the Guyana Defense Force, the rank of captain, and actually I was deployed at Camp Ghana, the headquarters of the Guyana Defense Force, and I was monitoring the whole process of the elections on October the 5th, right through the night until the results were announced. So I am part of the whole process, part of the democratic process, part of the change in Guyana, because for the first 6 years of my career, pre-1992, I was there with Forbes Burnham as the Commander-in-Chief and President of Guyana. Then, of course, as you mentioned, we had Mr. Hoyt from 1985 until 92. And then from 92 onwards, democracy, the restoration of democracy in Guyana. So I was there on the front line as democracy was restored in Guyana.
So that was a very good birthday in 1992 when you were there monitoring the restoration of democracy.
Actually, we had a birthday celebration too. We were working as a set of young officers. I know many of them are now retired and they could remember. All of us were confined to Ghana, and we were basically, monitoring what was going on throughout the country. And we found time, like good military officers, to work and at the same time celebrate a comrade's birthday.
Okay, and today you're celebrating a birthday as the Prime Minister of Guyana. So again, happy birthday, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
Before I ask Dr. Rose to ask a question, Mr. Prime Minister, I know you retired as head of the Army. When did you actually join the discipline service?
I joined the Ghana Defense Force in December 1980.
Okay, so you retired, as I said, as head of the Army. Mr. Prime Minister, I have to ask you this question. We know that the Army was put in control of collecting ballot boxes from 1968 to 1985. As a military personnel, becoming an officer, were you called upon to play any role in the rigged elections of the years you served in the Army?
Well, I can tell you that during the time I was in the Army, we never collected any ballot boxes. If my memory serves me right, there was an incident of ballot boxes being collected in 1973, I think it was, and I was not in the Army then. 1985, I can tell you, while we were deployed throughout Guyana for the elections in 1985, at no time did the military, was tasked with collecting ballot boxes in 1985. That's a fact. So the collection of ballot boxes would have been before my time in the Army.
Okay, that's a very nice answer, because I think most of the Guyanese believe that the Army was tasked with the responsibility of collecting ballot boxes and take them to the central place of counting when we heard all the stories of ballot boxes being destroyed or thrown into the river and different things. But you're saying that did not happen in 85.
In 85, I can tell you that in 1985, because as I said before, 92 I was a captain, 85 I was in the Army too. I think I was a captain already in 85, or maybe a senior lieutenant. And I cannot recall any instance of the Army being involved in 1985 in collecting ballot boxes. But if you know the history of the GDF, and I do know the history of the GDF, those allegations of being involved in moving ballot boxes would have been before I joined the GDF. And as I said, I joined the GDF in December 1980. We know of the incident in Barbies where the three young men, in a confrontation with the police, I think two of them were shot at in 1973, I think it was.
Yes.
There were allegations again, I think sometime in maybe 78 or 1980. But I joined the GDF in December 1980. I went overseas for the first 9 months of training. So the election that I was really involved in, the first election I was really involved in was 1985 election. Remember, Barnum died in August 85.
Right.
I think it was the 6th of August, and then we had an election in December.
That's correct.
That was the first election I worked in. I can tell you, we didn't touch any ballot boxes then.
Okay, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm glad to hear that. Mr. Prime Minister, after the restoration of democracy in 92, in 2020, this year, we saw an attempt by the APNU AFC to take back to the days of rigged elections. What role, Mr. Prime Minister, if any, did you play in defending our democracy from March the 5th until your swearing in as the Prime Minister on August the 5th, the 2nd?
Well, I can tell you, other than the fact that on the 5th of January, I was at the launch of the PPPC campaign. I was presented to the Guyanese Society as the Prime Ministerial candidate. I campaigned with the PPP from January the 5th right up to elections, which is It's held on the 2nd of March. And from the 2nd of March until the 2nd of August, I was involved in this fight for democracy during the recall and several programs that were broadcast to the people. We use the social media. We use virtual communication like Zoom, and we reach out to the people not only in Guyana but to the wider world. Wherever Guyanese are, they heard us, they saw us on television, and if you check my Facebook, you'll see that I'm famous for the words, democracy will prevail or must prevail in Guyana. And on the 2nd of August, after the decisions, the declaration was made by the chairperson of GCOM, my post on the 2nd of August, democracy has prevailed in Guyana. So I was there in the forefront in the fight for democracy, not only in the lead up to the elections, but in the struggle, the 5 months of struggle post-elections.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for being a part of that defender of democracy. Dr. Rose?
Yes, Prime Minister Brigadier Phillips, I always like to find out authenticity and going back to background checks. You grew up in Linden, am I right?
I grew up in Linden. I went to Linden at age 5.
So tell us something about your growing up at Linden, and what were the reasons for you getting into the Army?
Well, yes, I can tell you about growing up in Linden. Linden was an interesting place. And to put it in a nutshell, in the 60s and the 70s, I would describe my experience in Linden as, being in a society that was more or less dominated by the Canadian culture. Because as you know, Alcan has owned the bauxite industry in Linden, and the senior leadership of Alcan, they manage the bauxite industry, and the whole community in Linden, by extension, was managed by that senior leadership, along with senior Guyanese, in leadership position in Linden. So growing up in Linden, it was kind of like different from growing up in any part of Guyana. There's a Canadian, and he wrote 2 books. And when I read his books, I kind of connect with what he was saying. Linden was different from Guyana then. No problems in terms of infrastructure. The company was a company town, and the company did everything for Linden. And I'd like to register that, contrary to what some people will want to believe, that the PNC during the time, did a lot to develop Linden. That's no. It was the company, it was Alcan, who mined the bauxite in Linden, and Alcan that developed the infrastructure in Linden, Alcan that built the houses in Linden. Alcan run the schools. Most of the schools in Linden, the major schools in Linden were run by Alcan. Government controlled a few schools. The hospital was managed by Alcan. So it was in effect a company town, and we benefited from that company town that was managed by the Canadians who own the Aluminum Company of Canada.
Okay, now, few of us knew you in the Army. We know you're Chief of Staff, but you're the Prime Minister now, and the country knows you. Tell us something. Brothers, sisters, do you have parents? Are they alive or they're dead? Tell us something about your background, with family background.
Well, my mother died when I was about 7 years old. We all moved to Linden. Unfortunately, my mother died while we were in Linden. My father was blessed with long life, so he worked for about 40 years in the bauxite industry, and then he retired, and he died last year in his 80s in Linden.
Wow.
So basically, I have a brothers and sisters. We all grew up in Linden. We were educated at, both primary and secondary school in Linden. And generally, it was a family business to work with the bauxite industry. So I worked for a year at Guy Mine. It was then Guy Mine. I worked for a year in the alumina lab and the bauxite lab before joining the Army. Joining the Army, for someone who grew up in a mining town, you'd want to believe that perhaps I would have went on to be an engineer, a mining engineer or a mechanical engineer. But somehow I saw as a youngster and at an age in my life, where, young, impressionable mind, the soldiers used to be deployed from time to time to Linden on their training exercises. And also I had neighbors who were members of the reserve. So they were working in the company, and then, at month end, they will go for training. And I think that made an impression on me. And that led to me joining the Guyana Defense Force.
Brothers and sisters, do you have?
Oh, yes. I have brothers and sisters. All of them, they live in Linden, some live in Georgetown. 4 brothers, 3 sisters.
Okay, big family.
I'm married and I have adult children and 6 grandchildren.
Okay, congratulations. Okay, now the question is this. This is a big question. You spent almost 35 years in the military.
Yes.
Okay, now.
December 1980 to October 2016.
36 years, okay. Now, at that time in the military, your mindset, your psychic was strictly military. How you transitioned to be a politician now? Tell us about the transitional stage. How this impacted you, but it's positive or negative?
Well, it's positive in the sense that the military prepares you not only for life in the military, but it prepares you for life nationally, in the sense that if you follow the professional military education, at the junior level, you train an officer for tactical work, so to speak, to manage a platoon or manage a company, very skilled in weapon handling and military tactics. As you get a little senior, perhaps like around the rank of major, lieutenant colonel, your training is more an operational level training, where a lot of emphasis is on planning and coordinating military operations and other activities. And when you get a bit senior, lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier, the training at that level is more strategic level training. And here is where you're encouraged to think nationally, regionally, and internationally. And whether you train in Canada, you train in America, you train in England, basically with a military career that spans 30 odd years, you would go through those 3 levels of training: tactical, operational, and strategic level. From my experience, I had my formative training at the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, and between then to the rank of captain, I would have attended training locally, the Guyana Defense Force, and in Brazil. I'm a paratrooper. You call them parachutists or jump master. I'm that. I'm Special Forces guy. I later on went to Leavenworth, United States of America, and that's where I did my command and general staff training, operational planning, etc. And after serving a number of years in the GDF, I was lucky to be selected to attend the Inter-American Defense College. And that's where I was exposed to military training at a strategic level. And when you do these senior service courses, you don't only train with fellow military, you train with civilians, right? Senior administrators from different countries attend those courses. So here again, I'm using that to illustrate to you that the military officer who attends a senior service course like Inter-American Defense College will be exposed to strategic level thinking and treaty level training. In addition to that, I found the time to attend the University of Guyana. So I have a Bachelor of Science, Social Science degree in Public Management. And from 1999 to 2000, I was fortunate to go to the Dominican Republic, where I did my master's degree in Public Sector Management. And that was funded by the Lomé agreement, the European Union agreement with the CARIFORUM countries. They funded those scholarships. So I had a scholarship. I went to the Dominican Republic and I did public sector management at one of the better universities in Damrep. So I was able to complement my military training with the academic training. And here I am today, retired, and I decided to enter into politics for the sole reason because I still feel young, notwithstanding I'm 59 today, and I still feel that I could continue to serve the people of Guyana post-retirement. So it's a case of service, retirement, and service again.
Good.
Okay.
Now here comes the big question before I hand it over to you, Joe. I read in one of your speeches where you said you're going to make Linden the gateway to the interior. What do you mean by that, gateway to the interior?
Well, you know, Linden being the gateway to the interior, if you understand the whole infrastructural network, to get into the interior, you have to pass through Linden. If you're going into Lethem, the road will take you through Linden. If you're going into the mining areas, you know, you either go through Bartica by the road, by the river, and then road, or you could go through Linden too. So Linden is a town, while it was positioned because of bauxite, it is strategically positioned to support our developmental trusts in opening up the interior, our developmental trust in connecting with Brazil. As you know, Brazil wants to move a lot of their produce through Guyana to get to the Atlantic coast. And Linden is so positioned to support such a move, such a road network, to get into the interior, that's us getting into the interior, us opening our interior, and also for Brazil to move in products right through Guyana in the shortest possible route to the Atlantic coast. And you probably heard about that before.
Yeah, I did. Over to you, Charles.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, to follow from Dr. Rowe's question, it's so sad that your dad passed away last year. He couldn't live to see his son becoming the Prime Minister of Guyana. But I'm sure he's looking down from heaven looking at you. Okay. What I find intriguing is that apparently Linden, the bauxite industry, produced some outstanding Guyanese. Prime Minister Sam Hines was at the bauxite industry, and now you're also from that area. What is so good about the bauxite industry that make you guys so good to be a public servant?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer the question, but perhaps I would say Linden itself is a cradle, right? And it's a cradle that helped a lot of us to develop. And now we're ready to serve Guyana. Sam Hines was there. He came up through the system at the bauxite industry, and he served Guyana well. After only 1 year in the bauxite industry, but I was educated in Linden, I joined the Army. And the Army, the Guyana Defense Force also is one of the better run institutions in Guyana, the better respected institution, and one of the better respected institutions in Guyana. The Latin American Opinion Poll, for many years, rated the GDF as one of the better respected institutions, organizations in Guyana. So the GDF itself is a cradle for the development of future leaders for Guyana.
That's so good to hear. Brigadier, before we start the program, I mentioned to you today your birthday, of course, October the 5th. The president was born in the year 1980 when this new constitution came into being. Is it by some great design that you and the president has now, God has ordained the two of you to lead our country at this point in time?
You can answer the question better. But of course, I can tell you that working with Dr. Irfan Ali, for me, is a wonderful experience, because here I am at the end of my youth, because, you know, at 59, it's difficult to really, you know, be termed or convince any young person that you're still youthful. But I have an opportunity to work with a youthful president, a 40-year-old president, and I think that is what Guyana needs. We need the young and the not so young to work together to continue developing this country.
Well, I got good news for you. You know, the new 40 is now 60, right? So you're now back to 40.
And also, you know, the post 1992 and the pre 1992 experience, when you put it together, there are a number of things that we could put on a list as what to do and what not to do. One on our not to do list is that we must not go back to undemocratic rule in Guyana. Guyana can only develop in a democratic climate, and I'm a believer in that. And you know what is important? Many of the young people, we told them, my children too, we told them that, look, in the 1970s and up to the mid-1980s, up to 1992, we had autocratic rule in Guyana, authoritarian rule in Guyana. Things were undemocratic. They heard that from us. And you know what happened? Over the period December 2018 to August the 2nd, the young people of Guyana experienced undemocratic rule in our country. That is what happened to Guyana.
They did have a flare of what we experienced back.
From the no confidence motion in December 2018 to when the coalition decided that, you know, they will now bow, and the courts decided, and the election commission finally decided that we must declare the election to the rightful winners of this election. The young people of Guyana were able to experience undemocratic rule in this country.
And we are so proud of our young people who stood up to against rigged election, and they really did a great job. So our hats off to our young people. Mr. Prime Minister, not only is this your first time as an elected member of Parliament, as Prime Minister, you are the head of the government business. You were there for the budget and then the new ordinances that bring the budget into law. How was your first month experience in the House?
Well, that's a month that I will remember for the rest of my life. It was a busy month. Not much time to rest, but time to learn, time to really wrap my brains around a number of issues. You know, Parliament is steeped in tradition. So you have to learn fast how to operate in Parliament, how to address your fellow members of Parliament, how to address the Speaker, the clerk. You know, these are traditions that, you know, you had to learn. I had to learn very fast, you know. And then the whole issue of being a minister of government, you know, running a ministry. Everything is new to me. And I will normally tell my friends and my family, I said, this is an important part of my journey in life. You know, this is a continuation of my journey, right? I'm still learning. I'm enjoying it for what it's worth. And at some stage, I will be able to sit down and pen, you know, an autobiography about this particular part of my journey in life.
All right, Prime Minister, when we come back, we'll take a short break. Our topic tonight is, will Guyana have a better will Guyanese have a better country? And we want to delve in now into the country itself. You have stood out what you said in the last half an hour. You have stood out as one of the outstanding Guyanese who we believe with the president will make Guyanese proud. So when we come back, we will talk about, will Guyanese have a better country? We'll be back shortly.
TravelSpan is now booking repatriation flights and offering shop and ship. Book your repatriation flights to Guyana with TravelSpan. There are 2 flights weekly from JFK and 2 flights from Miami. All flights are non-stop to Guyana. TravelSpan will assist you with completing the forms and submitting to Guyana's government for your approval to travel. So book your flights today to Guyana, or if you choose not to travel, then call TravelSpan for their Shop and Ship program. TravelSpan is now offering Shop and Ship. Purchase a gift for yourself or a loved one. Send it to TravelSpan to arrange for all your shipping and clearing. Christmas is coming, so don't wait. Either book your flight or shop and ship with TravelSpan. In the US, call 718-845-0437. In Guyana, call 227-1701. And in Berbice, call 337-4287. And in Canada, call 647-557-6200. In US, 718-845-0437. In Guyana, call 227-1701. In Berbice, call 337-4287. And in Canada, call 647-557-6200. TravelSpan, serving you for over 26 years. Logistics International, based in Trinidad, with representatives in Guyana, is pleased to announce its shipping services from Trinidad to Guyana. Logistics provides shipping services and has experienced personnel to handle all of your shipping needs from Trinidad to Guyana. Buy in Trinidad and let Logistics handle all of your shipping to Guyana, from small boxes to container sizes. Call Logistics in Trinidad at 1-868-336-8218 to handle all of your shipping needs, and they handle all sizes. Logistics International has been shipping for over 22 years to many Caribbean countries with reliability and dependability. Call 1-868-336-8218 in Trinidad. That's 1-868-336-8218. Or email at liclcargo@gmail.com.
Welcome back to our viewers. We want to thank you for being with us tonight as we discuss, will Guyanese have a better country? And we have no other than the Honorable Prime Minister, Brigadier Phillips, and to assist me tonight is Dr. Euclid Rose, who is no stranger to us here at Globespan. Mr. Prime Minister, when we post this flyer up on social media, will Guyanese have a better country? One guy on social media, a guy named Dave, said, only when the politicians put country over self. And that's a very searching statement. The government that you're part of is being tested in numerous fronts as we speak today. The Berbice roadblocks seem to be a continual headache for the government. The COVID problem with the nurses at the Georgetown Hospital and Westham Hospital and Linden Hospital and so on. You mentioned in one of your statements, Mr. Prime Minister, that you have to follow the COVID protocol in opening the airport. What are the protocols and what is the government doing to ensure that this virus, this plague, does not spread as it is doing all over the world?
Well, there are several questions you're asking me there, and let us start with what we're doing to curb the spread. We recognize that for some reason, the people in Guyana wants to continue to live life as if there's no COVID-19 scare, no COVID-19 pandemic out there. And we are trying to use education, moral suasion, and to communicate widely and effectively to the people. And the last resort, of course, will be enforcement. Because we feel that trying to use enforcement alone will not work. We want to use all means necessary to communicate to the people, because once people follow the measures, and this is proven scientifically around the world, once people follow the measures of wearing the mask whenever they leave their homes, wear the mask, sanitize, wash your hands regularly, and practice social distancing, you know, they call it physical distancing or social distancing. That will help in a significant way to curb the spread of COVID-19. That is the big issue that we need to get over, that message to the people. And we have launched on Thursday, last Thursday, Operation COVID Curb. And here we're using the police force, the Guyana Defense Force, you know, the private sector, civil society, and anybody, youth groups, religious groups, any groups that want to join with us to get the message out to the wider Guyanese society that we have to follow the measures. Look, when we took over on August the 2nd, for 5 months, from the time we had the first case in Guyana to August the 2nd, we were hearing that, look, we have 2,000 testing kits in Guyana. And they were testing like about 15 to 20, you know, persons per day. And in order to get the results, the doctors had to send the results to the Minister of Health. And only the Minister of Health could declare the results as to whether you were positive or negative. We took over on the 2nd of August. And by the 9th of August, we had a plane with 10,000 testing kits delivered into this country. And from since then, of course, more testing kits. We had complaints that the medical professionals who were in the front line, they hadn't the PPEs, the personal protection equipment. We were able to get personal protection equipment in the country through international organizations that are resident here and sister countries that provided aid for us. And we were able to distribute PPEs throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. We had, even before we got into office, we had a mask campaign where the PPPC, you know, used funds and donations to design and sew masks and distributed masks throughout this country. We distributed over 200,000 masks throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. And we continue to do that. We continue to have masks distributed throughout Guyana. Now we're in government. We have all these measures in place, and we continue to coordinate the distribution of masks, the distribution of PPEs. We had a budget. We didn't wait until the nurses and the doctors and the other health workers who were in the front line to ask for an allowance. We decided that we will put $150 million in that emergency budget that will take us to the end of the year for the frontline workers, because we recognize the importance of these workers if we're to treat the people who unfortunately contract the COVID-19 and, you know, in a severe manner that they have to be hospitalized. So we have money in the budget, the emergency budget, for everybody, but definitely for our frontline medical workers. We are coordinating, as mentioned before, with all agencies at all levels of government, central, regional, and local government level, to fight the spread of COVID-19 in Guyana.
Mr. Prime
And
Minister,
as I said on Thursday, this COVID-19 is the major national security threat to Guyana. I said that on Thursday.
it is. So the $150 million in the budget, what will that do for the frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, the guy, the porter guy, whoever is involved in that frontline activities?
Well, remember, they're already receiving their salary, and that money will go towards providing a risk allowance in recognition of the work that they're doing. I mean, it's dangerous work. They can be affected by the disease too, right? They can contract COVID-19. That is just money going to their pockets. But we already or we also have a sizable amount of money in the budget to continue to provide the personal protection equipment for them. You know, we have the Guyana Defense Force, for example, we're using the buses from the Guyana Defense Force to provide transportation for those nurses who have to work long hours and have to get home after curfew. Right, there's several measures. They are going to benefit from the $25,000 per household, right? Because they have families, they'll benefit from that. We have the $15,000 per child, per school child. They have families, they have school children, they will benefit from that too. So all the measures in the budget, they will benefit from, in addition to the $150 million that was put aside or placed in the budget specially and specifically for frontline workers.
So why is this threat by the PSU, the Public Service Union, to call a strike when you're doing all this for these frontline workers?
Well, you know, the Public Service Union was reminded by way of a correspondence from the Attorney General that these frontline workers are essential workers, essential service workers. Yeah. And there's a process to deal with any dispute that they have. What is interesting is that this was not a point of dispute before the 2nd of August. In fact, if you read the papers on Sunday, the former minister of Finance is on record as saying that he approached the former minister of Health, you know, and was offering to provide, you know, finance the risk allowance for these frontline workers, and nothing was done. And here you have a government who didn't even wait for the workers to even ask or protest in formulating the budget for the rest of the year, decided that we will put money in the budget for the frontline workers. So here is a government that recognized, even before we got into office, we recognized the importance of ensuring that the frontline workers in the fight against COVID-19 are provided for, not only financially, but we spend so far over $600 million in providing PPEs and other equipment needed for the frontline workers, and also to equip the hospitals, right? There are more ventilators in our hospitals, thanks to assistance from sister country and organization that I mentioned before. There are more beds being made available to deal with COVID-19 patients. And as we equip the central hospital, we're now going out to the regional hospitals and equip them so all the COVID-19 patients don't have to come to Georgetown Hospital. They can receive similar treatment at the regional hospitals. The government, the last government, refurbished a building, as you know, a building that they didn't even start paying rent for, and they have a sign saying infectious disease hospital. But the reality is that when we took over, that was just a nicely painted and refurbished building. It was not an hospital. It could not have accommodated any patient. We have to go in there and we have to furnish the hospital. We have to put the equipment in the hospital. If you have a hospital catering for infectious diseases and COVID-19 patients, you have to have oxygen. They had no oxygen, no means of having oxygen in the hospital. All these things we have to put in. I don't want to sound like a doctor here, but I've been listening to the doctors as the coordinator for COVID-19, and therefore I'm at a position now where I understand what they're going through and what we have to do to make that building a proper hospital to house COVID-19 patients. And we're getting there in the shortest possible time. Here is a government that is prepared to face any problem we have in Guyana and fix it in the interest of the people of Guyana. That is all.
Mr. Prime Minister, coming to one of the main topics now, sugar, Gaisuku. My good friend has been appointed as CEO, says Narayan Singh. The government is trying to reopen sugar estates, but outside of that, what the government has not told the nation what plans they really have. What plans, to your knowledge, the government has for Gaisuku?
Well, you know, says Narayan Singh will come on the program, and I know once you invite him, he will give you all the details. But it was a manifesto promise that we will reopen some of the estates that were closed. I know a study was done, and based on the study that was done, it was shown that some of the estates can be reopened and can be made profitable, you know, over the next 2 to 3 years. Okay, so the technical people are the ones who are working on that, and I will defer to whenever they come on the program to talk in detail about that. But there's no way that we will open the estates purely for political reasons. It had to be a combination of political reasons and the fact that economically we can make these estates viable again. And based on all the analyses that were done so far, I am hearing that yes, we can make these estates viable again. And therefore, that's why we invest in those estates, because we firmly believe that the estates can be made viable again. And in making it viable again, we again create employment for the people, many of them who were sent home 3 to 4 years ago.
Okay, now another question, and this one is getting tougher. Now, you took over a government that is actually heavily in debt. Now, this government wants to build a bridge across the Demerara River and also join with the Suriname government to build a bridge across the Quarantine River. Where is that financing coming from? Where is the capital coming from? To your knowledge, if you know.
Well, I can tell you, I don't know where the financing is coming from. I can say upfront, I don't know, but I do know that there are studies that were done as to those 2 bridges, and the studies show that those are infrastructural projects that will be transformative for Guyana. Okay, those are projects that we should start thinking about now and funding now. As you know, Guyana is an oil producing nation, right? And the whole approach to financing for projects in Guyana has changed, because we are now earning revenue from oil, and we projected to earn more and more revenue from oil over the next 5 to 10 years. So even the lenders, I mean, I'm not a financial specialist, but the lenders obviously, or the financiers obviously will be looking at Guyana differently, because this is a country with a growing potential to borrow for developmental projects and to repay what is borrowed.
Okay, now let me go to another hot topic. West Coast Berbice, another part of Guyana, the Quarantine, Firish, and Anne's Grove and those places. There have been disgruntled factions in society who have been protesting and closing off streets and burning tires and so forth in streets. What message you have for these people? What message you could send to them now to tell them to defray from such destructive programs or plans?
Well, I can tell you from my experience, you know, unfortunately, when we had the death of the Henry boys, most unfortunate incidents, I and 2 other ministers went through those roadblocks, and we basically had to talk to the youngsters who were manning those roadblocks, because it was our intention to go to the homes of the Henry boys and to commiserate with the family, you know, to express our sympathies on the passing of the two boys, and to impress upon the families that we're committed towards getting to the bottom as to what really happened, what really transpired, what really caused the death of the youngsters. Yes, we were successful in getting to the Henrys, you know, the families, but along the way, it was an experience. And what I see, what I experienced, is a lot of young Guyanese who, notwithstanding that they were protesting, they were talking about job opportunities, they were talking about business opportunities, and we recognize that there's some social issues that we have to go to the drawing board and come up with a plan and to engage those communities. We have to engage those communities, right? Whether it's education, jobs, or whatever social sector, social services we could provide for them. We have to engage them and work with them towards improving their life and their livelihood.
Unlike former President Granger and former Director General Joe Armand, who went up there allegedly inciting the people, former Minister of Health Valda Lawrence went up and told the people, get off the road. This is not the way to settle any problems that we're having. You can't fight and kill Indians or whatever it is, because we have to live together. What message you got for her? For that, what you got for her for that message she sent out to the people then?
Well, I think I commended Valda Lawrence already for what she did, and I think she did the right thing. I am surprised that both Mr. Granger, Mr. Harmon did not do what Valda Lawrence did. They had a golden opportunity at the time when the bodies were discovered. They were the first on the ground, and they had an opportunity to set the tone. And the tone should have been a peaceful one. Set the tone, tell the people, you know, be calm, be peaceful, and allow the police to do their work. It took Valda Lawrence to do that. Set the tone, tell the people. It took Valda Lawrence to do that. But I am thankful that at least somebody did it, and Valda Lawrence did it. So hats off to Valda Lawrence.
Good. One question before I turn over to you, Charles, is this. The government is giving out $25,000 to each household or to each individual. Given the spread of the COVID virus, and we don't know how long it will last in the States and around the world, in Guyana as well, will this be a one-time distribution to the people? Do you know?
Well, let's look at the time period, October to December 2020. This is $25,000 per household that is given out now. The government has also made provision in the budget for the distribution of food hampers and food vouchers, separate and apart from the $25,000 per household. The government has also changed the curfew time. So we have from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. in the morning. And that itself will allow for economic activity and some businesses to reopen. So some of the people, or many of the people, will continue to remain employed. You know, many people will continue to be involved in their economic activity, whether it's farming, whether it's fishing. Small businessmen, you know, can continue to run the business and get home in time to get up early in the morning and get back to work. What we don't want is people to use the time to be partying, you know, and gone on a frolic of their own, which is associated with the spread of the disease. We want people to get back into their economic activities as much as possible, as allowed under the laws, and get back home to their family, because we recognize that while the government will be giving out assistance, people need to get back into their economic activity so they could continue to earn and provide for their family. The government cannot listen to the people.
Mr. Prime Minister, follow up on what Dr. Rose said. I know Vice President Jagdeo, with the COVID problem that you talked about earlier, he said instead of arresting people, which is not the best thing to do, they're having what is called soft enforcement, talking to people, urging them, more advocacy, saying it's your responsibility, not just the government. So I think the message you're sending to the Guyanese is that, hey, this thing is serious. All of us have to fight it together, or all of us will die together. So I hope that the Guyanese people listen to the government, the advice of the Vice President, and to you, and from the President, so that they can at least protect each other from this dreaded disease. Coming back to the violence, Mr. Prime Minister, it appears as though critics this morning were showing a clip of they blocking the road at Region 5, they're at number 4 village or number 5, I'm not sure which one. But this Indian guy riding his motorcycle and a black guy kick him off his cycle, and as if it has taken a racial overtone. So this is not a protest of okay, we are protesting because of the Henry boys, which I think is important, but it's taking a racial overtone. What I mean is the Minister of Home Affairs, is he up to the task to bring safety to the nation? Because I'm asking that question not to bash the Home Affairs Minister, but to understand that this is a job that people are fed up now in Guyana. People cannot walk the street in peace. People cannot stay out in their front yard late in the evening because they're afraid someone will come and rob them or do something like that. What, you're a former military guy, what can you do in conjunction with the Minister of Home Affairs? And I wish that you had direct responsibility for this Minister of Home Affairs, because you are trained, in that area. What can we do to assure the Guyanese people that they will be protected and this nonsense will stop?
Well, there are two aspects to your question there. With regards to the protests and the roadblocks, I have listened to both sides. As I told you, I encountered protesters and they talk their stories. But then as you go through the West Coast Barbies, you also reach victims who talk their stories. And I would be the first to tell you, yes, there are a number of Indian Guyanese who were victims of those protesters because they spoke with me, right? I saw some of the injuries, I saw some of the damages from their vehicles and so. And I think the time has come for the leadership, not only of the government side, but the opposition side, for all of us to come out and appeal to the people that whenever there's any problem in Guyana, we don't have to make it racial. It must not be racial. The reality is, with regards to crime, the other aspect of your question, with regards to crime, yes, the police force is doing their job. We want the police force to do more, but then I think the time has come for us to have vibrant policing groups. We need to form these policing groups. Every community should have a policing group, and we need to work with the police in making our towns, our villages, or our communities safer than it is right now. I'm an advocate for the policing groups.
But Mr. Prime Minister, what assurance can you give to the Guyanese who are watching this program and who will watch it afterwards that their safety is the #1 priority of the government and they will be safe in their community?
Well, I can assure you, because we are working with the police force, we're working to improve the operational capability of the police force. We recognize that they have some capability gaps, and we are working to improve the manner in which they train, how they are equipped, so they can better serve and protect the people of Guyana, not only in Georgetown, but as you mentioned, West Coast Barbies and all over Guyana.
Now, Mr. Prime Minister, here is a question. It's about 2 months now since this government is in office. You all had the riots up West Coast Barbies, and that seems to be ongoing. Then the nurses threatened strike, which could happen tomorrow or the following day. And now you have the success squatters. Normally in Guyana, this is what multiple sources have been saying. It takes between 8 to 10 years for the average person to get a house lot. Is this government going to shorten the span in less than half? I saw a letter by a friend of mine, wrote today, in Bangladesh, it's less than 1/3 of the time. And Bangladesh has 57,000 square miles and 160 million people. Guyana has 83,000 square miles and 780,000 people. So why it's taking so long? If it's taking this long in Bangladesh, in Guyana, given Bangladesh's size and population, it should take 65 years based on our calculations.
But, you know, we have to be fair. Up to 2015, the PPPC government had given out over 50,000, perhaps over 100,000 house lots, and developed several housing schemes in Guyana. What has happened from 2015 to 2020? What is the reason for, you know, the loss of momentum in giving out house lots and developing housing scheme from 2015 to 2020? We had some house shows, as they call them, where they build houses and they invite the media. But beyond that, not many house lots or houses were constructed and given out to the people. So we had 5 years of marking time, so to speak, in housing development in Guyana. So if you were saying that somebody applied for a house lot 6 years ago, and to date, they haven't obtained that house lot, you have to factor in the 5 years of the coalition government when almost nothing was done in the area of housing. So what we're doing, we're picking up from where the coalition left off. This coalition that didn't do anything much in housing. And we're committed towards, you know, delivering. This is a coalition that gives out house lots, and the people are coming forward to us and saying, look, I receive a paper for a house lot. No roads were developed in that area. No water, no electricity. Is that really a house lot? In all fairness to the recipient, they cannot do nothing with that lot. We are now correcting all those wrongs that were done over the last 5 years. And we have our Minister of Housing and our Minister of Water who are hit the ground running, so to speak, and are in all over Guyana working towards addressing the backlog of housing and water. We've committed ourselves that for the next 5 years that we're in government, 50,000 house lots. And we will deliver 50,000 house lots. Trust me, we will deliver. We have a president who's on record of delivering when he was the Minister of Housing.
Okay, quickly.
And trust me, we will deliver. So the backlog, the squatters, squatting is illegal in Guyana. You don't have to squat and put pressure on the government for now come and give you a house lot. You have to apply for a house lot. But notwithstanding that, you've seen what happened in Success. The Ministry of Housing, through the Central Housing and Planning Authority, went into the area and start listening to the squatters and started to address their concerns for house lots. So this is a government that is committed towards low-income housing, towards allocating house lots to every Guyanese.
All right,
Quickly.
gentlemen, when we come back, we take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue discussion about will Guyanese have a better country, and we want to talk about some more of those house lots, and we want to talk about the oil and gas sector as well, Mr. Prime Minister. So we'll be back shortly.
Logistics International, based in Trinidad, with representatives in Guyana, is pleased to announce its shipping services from Trinidad to Guyana. Logistics provides shipping services and has experienced personnel to handle all of your shipping needs from Trinidad to Guyana. Buy in Trinidad and let Logistics handle all of your shipping to Guyana, from small boxes to container sizes. Call Logistics in Trinidad at 1-868-336-8218 to handle all of your shipping needs, and they handle all sizes. Logistics International has been shipping for over 22 years to many Caribbean countries with reliability and dependability. Call 1-868-336-8218 in Trinidad. That's 1-868-336-8218. Or email at liclcargo@gmail.com. Globespan 24x7 continues its efforts to serve the communities. The platform provides for all sides to air their views and discuss solutions. Viewers in Guyana and across the world are participating in these discussions. Globespan's platform offers Guyanese an opportunity to express their concerns and discuss solutions in the political realm, thereby addressing the polarized situation. Discussions also include social ills such as alcoholism, domestic violence, suicides, and much more that have been plaguing the nation. Globespan 24x7 platform connects the diaspora and the world with Guyana. The concept is helping to shape the development of Guyana. So Globespan 24x7 needs your support to continue to serve the communities. Go to globespan247.com and pledge your support with from as little as $5, $10, $15, or $20 or any amount each month. Your support will help and go a long way to develop Globespan 24x7 as an independent platform that brings in all sides for the communities. By including all sides, we can bring long-lasting changes for all Guyanese. Log on to Globespan 24x7 today and pledge your support.
Give me the name. I look for it after the program.
All right. Again, welcome back to our program. We want to thank you so much for staying with us. This evening, we're having a great discussion. The Prime Minister is on the hot seat, and he is giving his best advice and answer to us. And I think the answers he's given is bringing some solace to the people of Guyana. We look forward to ensure that whatever we discuss tonight is implemented. So welcome back. Thank you for Prime Minister for staying with us again. Dr. Rose, you have a question for the Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, as I was saying, economic, political, and social scientists have concluded that Guyana brain drain will continue, and that the people residing in Guyana now alone cannot shape and develop the country. The government will have to seek foreign expertise or Guyanese abroad, qualified Guyanese to bring them back home, might have to adjust salaries and so forth in order to help develop the country. What do you think of such statement? Do you think it's plausible for the government to employ Guyanese abroad and to help develop the country?
Well, it's a combination of employing Guyanese from abroad to assist in developing the country, but also I would like us to focus on attracting a higher level of foreign direct investment to Guyana. I think once we got a lot of foreign investors and investments coming to Guyana, that itself will help to build Guyana and also to bring the skills needed for development in Guyana. You know, if we wisely spend the revenue from oil on well thought out developmental projects in Guyana, that itself will help to not only develop the infrastructure in Guyana, but also develop the human capacity that is needed to build Guyana. That will attract workers to come to Guyana. because, you know, the salaries will go up and Guyana will become an attractive place for employment. You know, a lot of Guyanese left and went to the Caribbean in the 70s and the 80s. You would see not only Guyanese from the diaspora coming back to Guyana, but other workers, other skilled personnel from the Caribbean and from the wider world, you know, will find Guyana attractive as a place for employment. So I'm saying that being a petro state now, over the next, I would say 5, 10, 15 years, Guyana will develop, and that itself, that development of Guyana, that infrastructural development of Guyana, you know, that itself will attract a lot of foreign workers to come and work in Guyana. We'll have better schools, better hospitals, we'll have more universities opening in Guyana, better highways, and that itself will, you know, attract a lot of people to come and work in Guyana.
Now, another question, oil. The Payara contract has been signed, but if people don't know what's in the contract, are there royalties and how much percent? And was there a signing bonus?
You know the answer better than I do.
Huh? I don't know
the answer better than I do. You know, the little do I know about Payara, the contract is not a production sharing agreement. It's a production license.
Okay.
We already have a production sharing agreement that we have to honor. And that was signed by the coalition government. We have to honor that. In the business world, that is expected. What we have done with the production license is that we ensure there are safeguards to protect the patrimony of Guyana. And the reality is that we need investment. We need Payara. And if you look at the wider world, you know, I was just reading an article only yesterday where they're saying that there's a slowdown in investment in some areas in the oil industry. You know, in fact, some of the bigger companies are selling out certain oil fields in some parts of the world. And we're lucky in Guyana, I'm not an expert, but we're lucky in Guyana that Exxon is here, and Exxon has indicated that they're here for the long haul. But then we have a responsibility to the people of Guyana to ensure that safeguards are in place to protect the environment, to protect the patrimony, as you know, we allow these companies to explore and to develop our oil fields. I know they're experts who will give you a better answer. They're more technically inclined, but from a strategic standpoint, I would say yes. You know, we have to have the safeguards in place to protect our environment, to protect our patrimony, as we encourage investments in all sectors of Guyana, be it oil, be it gold, you know, be it bauxite.
But Mr. Prime Minister, following Dr. Rose's question, as you said, the production sharing agreement was signed for the Stabroek block that Minister Trotman signed. That gave us 2% royalty, and we shared 12.5% in profits. Now, what the PP signed on Payara, as you said, is a production agreement, not a profit, not the production. No.
It's a production license.
Right, because the production.
Let me add this to it. Payara is in the Stabroek block.
That's
so correct. You already have a production sharing agreement for the entire Stabroek block.
That is correct, and that's the point. That's the point I want to raise. So what everyone has been saying, and Kaiser News has been the master player in this, and they're showing us all the problems around the world, is that the government should have used the Payara production license to get a better deal from the production sharing license of the Stabroek block, and they have not done that. So what, and the thing is, Prime Minister, before you answer, Exxon is playing chess with us and we are playing draft. Exxon is telling us that we need to sign this agreement before September 30th because the investors will take their money outside. Where will they take their money? Guyana has the cheapest, most competitive production of oil anywhere around the world in deep water. So Exxon's future is in Guyana's production. So they have played us, and they're telling us, hey, if you don't sign this agreement, we will walk away. Where will they walk away and go, Prime Minister?
Yeah, but you know, in all fairness to us, what Kaichur News should also tell the people is that we have recruited renowned professionals, consultants, who did analysis of this whole arrangement before we went and signed the Payara agreement, the Payara production license. We did that. We didn't just went and sign blindly. And that's why I said that we're in a better position now with this Payara agreement for the safeguarding of our patrimony, to safeguard our environment and everything. And you know what we need to tell the Guyanese people? That we have a production sharing agreement for the Stabroek block. In the Stabroek block, we are producing oil from Liza 1 or Liza 1, Liza 2, and now we have Payara, which will be developed and start producing in 2024. So there is already a production sharing agreement that was signed by the coalition government, and in the business world, we are expected to honor that agreement.
But not if the agreement is lopsided, Prime Minister. We know in opposition, the PPP also complained that the thing is lopsided, but everybody seems to be, Exxon seems to be the winner in all of this, because the bottom line is this: Mr. Kushia wrote a nice article in Kaichur today as well, saying that we will be paying costs that Exxon will put on us for many, many, many years to come. So this big oil bonanza we are expecting is a fallacy, because if today oil market price is under $40. We don't know. I was watching the news today in the US, and they're having all this vehicle with renewable energy and all these different things. So maybe in another 15, 20 years, most vehicle will be using not heavy oil, diesel, but renewable energy. The thing is, Guyana will go on paying for this investment, and there is no any well is protected in terms of the cost for a well stays with that well. What I call it, ring capping, I think they call it. So we're the ones, the Guyanese are the ones who we will get some money, Mr. Prime Minister, but it will not be the kind of money that an oil producing nation should have received. When Chatham House said we will lose $55 billion in the Stabroek block alone.
Well, Chatham House said we lose $55 billion in the Stabroek block, but I can assure you, when other blocks are developed in the future, we will ensure, once we're in government, that we have better production sharing agreement for the development of other blocks beyond Stabroek block.
Prime Minister, with due respect to you, we don't know if these other blocks have oil. We know the Stabroek block have oil. We are only assuming that these other blocks have oil. Suppose nothing comes up, then what are we going to negotiate? Nothing. I mean, that's I think we made a big mistake by signing Payara without trying to push Exxon, even if the 2% couldn't renegotiate it, whatever the reason. At least other benefits should come to Guyanese. We should get a lot more money for training, a lot more money for infrastructure. Dr. Rose mentioned we want to build a bridge across the Demar River. We want to build a highway to Brazil. We want to do all these things. We got to borrow money, and we're giving away $55 billion to Exxon. Prime Minister, something is wrong there.
We didn't give it away. It was given away before we came into power.
But that's true. But Prime Minister, the Payara license should have been able to give us some more things that we need. We should have told Exxon, listen, you got to build the Demar Harbor Bridge. Why do we have to borrow money? They should build a road to Latam. Why do we have to borrow money for that when they're taking away all this money from us?
Well, I wish to assure you, put it on record, assure that as other blocks are developed, we will learn from the mistakes of our predecessors, the coalition government.
But you know, Prime Minister, we went to school. It says a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. We don't know what the others are. But before I ask Dr. Rose to ask your question, someone asked, and I know we're talking about squatting, and Nigel Hines today wrote that saying squatting of our citizens is a very derogatory term. And as Leland Rupterain mentioned in his letter that, you know, we have so much land, why do our people have to squat? They should really everyone should get a house lot. My question to you is, those Guyanese who reside overseas, can they apply for house lot also in Guyana?
Well, of course. Under the PPP government, we had a remigrant program. Okay, and that still exists once we're in government. We will not look after Guyanese alone in Guyana. We look after Guyanese wherever Guyanese are located. So Guyanese in the diaspora could also benefit from house lots under the remigrant program.
Okay, thank you, Prime Minister. Dr. Rose?
Yeah, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm coming to something here now. Modernization, computerization of Guyana. You know, of the quarantine, if I commit the crime of the quarantine, it's written and put in a book and maybe sent to Wim Police Station, Yumston Police Station. If I come to Georgetown and I want a police clearance, and I'm living in 15 Durban Street Lodge, they will just check in Georgetown to see whether I got a criminal record or not and give me a police clearance. When are we going to computerize the system in Guyana? I'm not talking about police. I'm not talking about the entire country. Because when a bus driver is pulled over on the road, he's being told he's not being given a ticket. He's being told to follow the guy to the police station. Why not issue a ticket to these people? Why not put it in the computer that John Jones has a ticket and he has to come to court? It's not time for us to spend money in next year's budget on computerization of the country. Everything should be computerized by now. And I can tell you this, it's not that expensive to do. I know people, experts who work at firms can do it.
Well, I agree with you. And I would tell you that, yes, some amount of computerization has started and we had limited success, but things are going to get better very soon, because as we proceed with the liberalization of the telecommunications sector in Guyana, a sector that falls under my ministerial portfolio, the whole ICT will be modernized. Connectivity will be far better than it is right now. And all the things that you mentioned just now, the police being better able to do their work, being computerized, being interconnected, all these things will be realized in the shortest possible time. Right now we are talking and we are about to liberalize the telecommunications sector in Guyana. More players, we envisage more players will be in the market in Guyana, more investors, more cables, more on the water, on the sea cables will be coming to Guyana. And in the shortest possible time, 5G and all these things will be available in Guyana. And once we liberalize the telecommunications sector, we know the prices that we're paying right now, the rates we're paying right now will go down, right? Because of competition, and the service will be better. And therefore, e-governance, e-health, e-security, e-agriculture, all those platforms that you're enjoying in Canada or in the United States will come to Guyana, will be available in Guyana in the shortest possible time.
One last question from me.
This government will do it.
Okay, one last question from me. Now, the bottom line is this. Opposition leader Joe Armand said he wants to meet with President Orphan Ali. President Orphan Ali says he can't meet with him unless he publicly denounces the fact that he's calling this government illegitimate. Why would you want to meet with an illegitimate government? What have you to say?
Well, you know, Mr. Harmon, I would say to Mr. Harmon, my advice to Mr. Harmon is to reread the Constitution of Guyana and just follow the Constitution of Guyana. Because the same laws in the Constitution of Guyana that makes him legitimate as the leader of the opposition. It's the same law that made the president legitimate as the president of Guyana. So you cannot have a legitimate or a legally in place opposition, leader of the opposition, and the president is not legal or not legitimate. He must go back to the Constitution of Guyana and read it. When GCOM declared the winner of the elections, that declaration made Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali the legitimate president of Guyana. Only GCOM chair could do that. Only GCOM could do that. They did it. So he should not be accusing Mr. Ali or Dr. Ali of being illegitimate. He has a petition in the court, and until the court decides, only then he could change what is already done by GCOM. And GCOM, in their declaration, legitimize the presidency and legitimize by extension the leader of the opposition office.
And that's well said. That's well said, Prime Minister. Also, why did Mr. Harmon went to Parliament, knowing that
exactly
it's illegitimate? It doesn't make sense.
Why did he went to Parliament?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
The nation that.
Yeah, Mr. Prime Minister, you answered part of the question. I want to ask you this: what area of government you have direct responsibility for?
Okay, as Prime Minister, you know, I have, unlike the previous Prime Minister.
I didn't want to compare the previous Prime Minister.
I have responsibility for the government information sector. He had responsibility for that. Moses had responsibility for that, so I have responsibility for government information sector. I have responsibility for the telecommunication sector. I have responsibility for the energy sector, you know, like GPL, you know, power production, you know, Guyana Energy Agency, you know. I have responsibility for disaster preparedness. And I'm a member of the Guyana Defense Board, and also the leader of government business in the House of Assembly.
So you have much more than
Prime Minister.
So you basically had a responsibility what Sam Mines had as Prime Minister. That's it, because he had energy as well, and he had some other areas that he was in charge of as Prime Minister of Guyana then.
I will put it better. I have responsibility what Sam Mines had, and also what Moses Nagamoto had, and more.
Well, the former Prime Minister had responsibility for the Chronicle, I think. That was all he was doing. So it was that was sad. Mr. Prime Minister, it has been a great evening with you. I really want to thank you so much to take time from your birthday, and again, happy birthday to you, to be with us. I know your family is waiting to take you to dinner. I think it's late now, it's 9 o'clock, so dinner time is gone.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah, so we want to thank you so much, Prime Minister, for being with us, and you have answered our question frankly and directly. There are a lot more questions to ask, but you know, we can't keep here for the entire night. So we're looking forward sometime in the future, Mr. Prime Minister, you get some time to come back on our program so we can continue discussion. Congratulations to you, and we want to wish you on behalf of Globespan 24x7 to wish you all the best in your office as Prime Minister. And based on what you told us tonight, I think Guyanese can rest assured that they are in good hands. I would only add one thing, that maybe the security sector, the home affairs, should also come under your responsibility, because you being a military person, I think you have a lot of ideas of how we can straighten out our security arrangements so people of Guyana can be safe in their homes and on the street. So again, Prime Minister, I want to thank you. Is there anything you want to say well, Dr. Rose, anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I want to thank the Prime Minister too. It was a short notice to get you, but it did come on the program, which is very good. And it was a pleasure, real pleasure talking with you. I am more enlightened now with the oil industry because production sharing agreement and production licensing agreement, it has been clarified for the people of Guyana to know the difference. It's one Stabbrook block. So part of that agreement has been completed. So I agree with that, but I'm happy that you're able to explain that to the people so that they know that you cannot have royalties, you cannot have no signing bonuses anymore. That's already been taken care of. So thanks again for coming on, and look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future.
And I would like to say in closing that our government is a team. Our approach to governance is a team effort. So wherever I am located, I will contribute to whatever the government is doing. So my expertise in defense and security doesn't matter that I am dealing with all those sectors that I mentioned before, but I'm also available to the government to advise on matters of defense and security. So this is a team effort. And we are committed to running the affairs of government of Guyana for the benefit of all Guyanese.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, and stay safe.
Mr. Prime Minister, based on what happened between March 2nd and August 2nd, my only opinion is that the PP will be there for a very long time, and I can see you being in government for a very, very long time. And we want to ask you, please, to ensure that the citizens of Guyana are taken care of, their safety and their welfare is taken care of, so that all ethnic group, everyone in Guyana, they have a place in this home we call Guyana. So, Prime Minister, thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the viewers for listening. And I'm committed to working and taking care of all the people of Guyana, even the people of Guyana in the diaspora.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
thanks for that. I'm going to hold you to that.
And to our viewers out there, we want to thank you so much to Nohar Singh and to Devin. We want to wish you all the best. And to all of you, good night and God bless our country of Guyana. Thank you so much.